Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vickie Poole. I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist specializing in habit change. And this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing, and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest that I'm going to introduce in just a moment. But before I do, I would love to ask you to do me a solid. And that means to leave a comment, leave a question on this episode, and like, subscribe, and share. And now let's get started. So this wonderful woman right here is Kimmie. And Kimmie and I have been kind of in the same circles for a little bit with different groups on Facebook. And I originally met her in, I don't even know which, it was one of the Do the Thing groups, but I don't even remember which one it was. But we just connected and she's become part of my group. And she is just one of the founding members, and she's always there, always shows up, does all the things, and just recently shared a superhero picture of herself created by AI that was so fun to see, and describing her superpowers, and it was really joyful. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself just a little bit, and then we're going to just have a conversation, get to know each other even better.
Okay, so I'm Kimmie, and let's see, I'm 52. I have 3 grown children, and I got 4.5 grandbabies. One will be here in September. That'll
Wow,
be my
wow.
fifth grandbaby altogether.
Lucky you.
Let's see, yes, and I got 1 girl and 4 boys. It's gonna be because the
Oh,
new baby that's coming in September is gonna be a boy.
all right.
So that's my babies, and then I got 2 daughters and a son and 2 sons-in-laws and a daughter-in-law. So my family's getting there.
Yeah, getting bigger and bigger every day, right?
Yes. And then let's see, I got 3 siblings, a sister and 2 brothers. So, and then just me, and I'm the oldest of all of us. So,
All right,
but
beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And, I will say I know a little bit about some of your story. And I know one of the things that has been kind of on top of your mind a lot recently, from what I remember, now correct me if I'm wrong, is that you had kind of departed from a narcissistic relationship. Am I remembering right?
you are correct. It's very toxic. Um,
Yeah.
it was interesting to be part of that. My relation here, him and I worked together at our local medical facility. Friends for a year, and then we started dating in January. And then it was back in March, the 24th. Actually, no, March 17th, we took his daughter back home to where he's originally from to go be with her mother because she came out for the weekend. And then March 18th, he stopped contacting me, and I knew something was wrong then. So it wasn't, it was like I knew something was up. And then for like a whole week, he was really weird. And then the following Sunday, after St. Patrick's Day, he calls me and he's strung out on drugs. I guess he didn't have crack. He was high on meth.
Hmm.
I was like, wow. So was a reformed uh, drug addict. He's been in and out of rehab 12 different times. And I'm like, at this point, that's not serious. And you're not taking it serious when you're smoking weed and you're drinking beer and
Yeah.
whatever else you're doing. So now you're not taking your recovery seriously. And he's 58. So he calls me up. I go in. That man was a hot mess. So I'm sitting there and I'm trying to take care of him, make sure he's okay. Then I came back later that day to help him clean up his place because it was a pig hole. and I wasn't gonna have him sit like that in that condition, you know. I would have went in and cleaned it myself, you know, if he was sleeping. But after that, he was he was still getting high. Um, and then I found out I just kept praying that God would reveal stuff to me because he wasn't behaving like he normally would. Well, he moved a woman in who was a addict like him, and they've been together. And then last Friday he contacted me, wanted to talk to me, and he was like, "Oh, I'm torn between you and her, and that's another woman." I said, "No kidding, really?" Like I said, I already knew because the day before I saw her come to your place, I go, "I saw evidence that you moved her in." I said, and I took pictures just in case you forgot. And I did. I really did. They're on my phone. But I told him, I said, look, I said, I'm not anyone's option. I said, you really need to get yourself well. I said, I'm not an addict. I said, plus, I could tell myself I was starting to lose myself. I was starting to get depressed. I could feel it. So I was like, I can't be around it. I said, and you're not taking your recovery seriously. I said, you're still a junkie, dude. And so he's narcissistic. He's got a lot of mental issues because of being an addict. God only knows what he had experienced as a child, because I think a lot of his issues stemmed from when he was a kid. Um, but you know, at some point you got to take accountability for your behavior. You can blame a certain amount of it, but you got to at some point accept accountability and grow up.
Yeah.
And
No,
he's stunted.
the one of the things that I look at with all that stuff is that when you're growing up, you can blame a lot of stuff on your parents, and everybody seems to. But as you
Hmm.
become an adult, you gotta say, okay, I can either choose to overcome what happened or embrace what happened, whatever.
Oh
And
yeah.
no longer can you blame others for your lot in life because it is your deal as an adult. You can't still be blaming your parents, but a lot of people do, and it's really sad. Well,
Yeah.
I want to ask you something. Um, and you don't have to answer if you don't want to. But do you typically find yourself always being somebody's rescuer?
Honest to God, I feel like I am. I feel it lately, with this last relationship here. Um, and last summer when I found do the thing, which was God had his hand in it. I'm gonna say that because I was dating my neighbor, and it was like I just made the fatal mistake of asking him a question, and he took it upon himself to hit on me. And at the time, I
Mm.
was working at the medical facility as a screener because it was during the COVID thing, and it was my second year there, going on my third year. And Ollie, he came in, and we had gotten a new landlord, and I wanted to know directly from him because he looked like a straight shooter. I didn't realize when he was going up to the floor, he was going to see his dying girlfriend, who was literally on death's door, dying of cancer. And then he was coming down hitting on me. And I'm
Mm.
like, I thought it was like, a relative. I didn't realize that was his girlfriend until after she passed away. And then when I met his family, they were like, oh no, that was his girlfriend. I'm like, get out of here. I'm like, wow. So, um, but it seems like, yeah, I feel like I'm like the rescuer for everybody. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And it's like,
So, do you
it's just
remember
crazy.
when you were young growing up? Were you the rescuer then too for people?
Yep, I had to be. Um, I was telling my girlfriend, I was talking to my girlfriend before I talked to you. And we talked about my mother. And my mom had me, when I was a little kid. And well, when she was 21. And my dad had taken off when I was 3 months old. So she was, left to raise a child. Uh, but it was like, I would say she married my stepdad when I think I was like 5 or 6, but the woman didn't love the man. She just married him for his money and to get away from my grandparents. So, in that household, I grew up getting, um, we lived with my grandparents off and on, after she married him. We lived with them when I was little, but, that. the situation was just like I grew up with domestic violence. Um, they would fight all the time. And then I got to the point where they would take their anger out on us, mainly me because I was the oldest. But my mother would take it out on us kids. Um, but I got the brunt of it. And then my stepdad, because I
You
hit
mean by just
puberty
yelling and
exception.
screaming?
Oh no, there was physical. Like my stepdad one year got mad at me and threw me into a Christmas tree, picked me up and threw me into it.
Mm.
My mother, she would be physically abusive to me, as well as verbally, mentally, emotionally. I mean, I telling you, I had the gamut of abuse. My stepfather sexually abused me for many years, um, until my mom left when I was 14. Then we moved back in with my grandparents, but it was like an hour away from where we were living. And then I stayed with my grandparents for 1 year, and then I moved in with my mom. And then from there, I moved out when I was 21. But yeah, I was like always taking care of my siblings. I was trying to be there for
So
somebody.
you were probably um, trying to be the buffer for them, right?
Yeah,
You make sure that they didn't get hurt, even if it cost you, right?
pretty much. I mean, my mom would get, pardon me, man, it's like allergy season.
That's
Pollen is
okay.
bad here. Between that and the neighbor's cat, oh my gosh. But no, I can remember one time my mom got mad and my brothers were babies, okay,
How old
and
were they?
toddlers, little toddlers, just like one was learning how to walk or they were both walking. But see, I'm 6 years older than my sister. I'm 8 years older than my one brother, and I'm 10 years older than my other brother. And so I would go to school, and so would my sister. My other brother would be in pre-K or daycare or whatever, and she kept my little brother home because he was still a baby. Well, you know, this one day this was before they started school. She got real mad and she picked up both my brothers and she flung them down the hall like a bowling ball and they rolled. I saw it and I was like probably 10, 11 years old. So, I mean, she wasn't exactly the sweetest lady. I mean, she was like Jekyll and Hyde and triggered. Oh my God. Narcissistic. Oh, you know it. I mean, my whole family is narcissism. So I'm like used to that. I
Mm-hmm.
think I was talking like, so yeah, I was a buffer for people, trying to make sure that they were safe. And it was like when I was probably around 10 or 11 when I realized when they were starting to make sexual abuse known in that time. This was in the 80s, mind you. um, I started because they were teaching us in school good touch, bad touch. And so it was like I never said anything to anybody because I felt dirty because of what my stepdad did to me. So I never said nothing. But um, like when my sister would come sleep with me because we shared a room, I would always put her in away from him, and he'd always come after me. But the reason why he never touched my sister is because she was his daughter. I wasn't. So it gave him open rein to abuse me.
Mm.
So I was the stepchild that he adopted, last name only.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So,
that happens more than we realize, because
oh yeah.
I know somebody from years ago that a similar thing happened to her daughter because she got remarried and he adopted her, but she had actually adopted her too. So he really felt like there was no, you know, incest or
Boundaries.
anything. Yeah, yeah. She ended up putting him in jail and everything, but put this little girl in a really bad place. But
Oh
so
yeah.
it's a lot to go through. But the thing is that a lot of times as we go through those things and we for whatever reason we're not able to really deal with them and clear them all out, we just keep creating those things in our lives all the time to kind of like say, oh, it's not working yet. You haven't gone through it. You haven't cleared it out. And so you're still creating some of those things in your life. And
Yeah.
and it's And it's interesting because even though we don't want those things, we still
No.
pull them in because that's what we're used to. It's
Oh
been
yeah.
part of our lives for a long time, right?
Oh
So
yes.
what are you doing now, if anything that you can think of that helps you to break this cycle so that you can keep going and you can have romantic partners and you can have those things. And I know one thing I had told you before when we had talked was not to date for a while till you got this stuff,
Yeah.
cleared out and got through. So what are you doing to kind of help so that maybe anybody that's watching or listening that may be having the same pattern showing up in their lives, they may have an idea of something they can do to um, stop the cycle.
I know. Well, for me, it was like I said, do the thing. And I think what changed me was do the thing, find your voice. That's
Mm-hmm.
when it started. That's when it started. Well, first it started when I did the singles and dating. I started with that group, and the first it was only 7 days, and I was scared to death of the challenges before I started. I'm like, God, I hope she don't plan on us jumping out of an airplane or something, you know.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, what is she gonna make us do? So I was like, all right, you're gonna do something different. You're gonna meet people, like self-positive talk, you know.
Yeah.
And so the one thing she had us do every night for a whole week, aside from the challenge, is write down one thing every day that we loved about ourselves. And that right there was something that was so god awful painful for me because I
Mm.
didn't like myself. I
Yeah.
spent most of my life hating myself, not thinking I was worth anything. So I had to start picking it out. And she's like, I don't care if you like your eyebrows. Just say you love them, just
Mm-hmm.
something. But I was like, I really started digging deep, you know. And I can remember a couple of years back, my friend, she needed a chair to sleep in because she had suffered some issues with her back. I gave her one of my chairs to use, one of my recliners. I'm like, have at it. And she got me a couple of gifts and thanked me and she talked me up. And I'm like, I'd do it for anybody. I said, it's just God, wait. And so she's like, you know what your gift is? And I said, what's that? She's like, your love language is compassion. I was like, really?
Mm.
And she's like, yeah. She goes, Kim, you're compassionate to people. She goes, and you're an encourager. So I was like, wow. Well, plus two, when she gave me my chair back, because I didn't want to give hers back. One, I liked the color and it was cool, and two, it was comfortable. But when she gave me back mine, my chair smelled good because she was into the essential oils. So my house, I was like, I'd sit in my chair and I'm like, yeah, I'm cool, relax. So I was like, anytime you want to borrow my furniture, I'll hand you my futon,
That's
whatever.
right.
Just
That's
bring it back
right.
smelling good, sister. But yeah, she was like, she's, and it's just been so weird. It was like even when I worked at the hospital, people would come up to me. And, at that time, it was like all you could see was eyebrows, eyeballs, and it
Oh
was very
yeah,
hard because it
yeah.
was masks. And then when we took our masks off, they were like, some people need to keep the mask on, but, be
Isn't it
nice.
amazing? I was thrown with because I was a hairstylist and I had new clients during that period. And so I had never seen them other than right there, right? And then when we didn't wear the mask anymore and they came up, I didn't know who the hell they were.
It's
Look,
about it was
it is
me.
amazing how much just hiding that part of your face changes everything.
Oh, and the acne. Oh, from here down, it was bad. Like my poor face, it was horrible. I mean, it's stress now, but anyway, so it was like, so yeah, so like I, I just people would come up to me and they would draw to me, and it's always, and I don't go looking for nobody. Trust me when I tell you, I don't look for nobody, but they attract me. It's all the weirdos, the mentally disturbed. And it's like, I know my father was schizophrenic and my mother was Jekyll and Hyde, but leave me alone, will you?
Yeah.
And it's like they all congregate. Well, someone told me, and she goes, you're empathetic. And I'm like, what's that mean? I thought she was like insulting me. She's like, no, Kim. She goes, it's a good thing because you can feel people's energy. You can feel their pain. And she goes, it's a gift, but yeah, it can be a curse too. So I
Yeah.
can feel people's emotions, and I'm intuitive to stuff like that. And so I was like, okay. And but that's why like people would like literally suck my energy out because they all wanted part of Kim, they'd sit there, they'd tell me about their life story, or something, and I would try to make light of the situation. I'd joke around with my people that would come in, and I had my regulars, they would come in for labs and stuff, and it was like I was truly blessed. I really was. And that's my favorite job. Out of any job I've had in my years, even as a nurse aide, being a screener was my most favorite job.
Hmm.
And I came into my own, and it was like, it was awesome. And so, but to get back to what I was saying, like, so do the thing, help me start to like myself, start to see my qualities other than people pointing it out to me. And people would say to me at the hospital, there's something different about you. There's something different about you. Or some of them would read my aura or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, God's in you. God's got you protected. I had one guy that came up to me, didn't know me from Adam, and he goes, God wanted me to tell you he hasn't left your side and to keep looking up. And I almost fell off my chair.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, you
Can I
know,
share a story
um,
with you real quick?
yes.
I had a brand new client come into the salon to get her hair done. And I had just been talking about, before she ever came in, I had been talking about I had some painting I was wanting to do on the side of my house on the outside. And it was a tall wall. So I had this extension ladder, and I was even thinking about, I can put that extension up and, and I'll climb this ladder, I'll have my paint. So I was kind of envisioning all this stuff, right? And I didn't know this person from anybody. Never seen her before. It's the first time she'd ever been in the salon. She sits down in the chair and we're talking, and all of a sudden she has this thing where she just kind of looks at me. And I was getting a little uncomfortable because it was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because, I'm standing up here and she turns and looks at me and she's got this glowing in her eyes. And she got my hand and she said, I just got to say something to you. And I said, what's that? She said, God just put this on my heart, telling you for me to tell you, do not climb that ladder today.
Oh, wow.
I said, what? What? She said, I don't know what it means, and I don't know if it's a metaphor. I don't know anything about it. It's just on my heart to tell you, do not climb that ladder today. And it was like, oh my goodness. And I said,
Yeah.
thank you. And then my hands were kind of shaking. It was hard to do her hair, right?
Oh,
But
I would
I
be
didn't go
too.
up that ladder that afternoon, I'll tell you, because it was a long extension ladder. So it's like I was going to be there by myself
There
and
you go.
everything. So, but it was amazing to have that happen, right?
Mhm.
And so it is sometimes I think, just like this gentleman, there's people that are put in your path to direct you somewhere or to give you some kind of um, um, warning or direction or something, even if it's just a word of encouragement. And there's so many times. And one of the things that you said a moment ago that I'd kind of like to pop back to is you said that it seemed like all these people were coming and wanting a piece of Kimmie, right?
Oh, they do.
And one of the things I talk with my clients a lot about is remember we vibrate out, right?
Oh, yes.
Who we feel we are, what our boundaries are, and all of those things. And so a lot of times it's because we're maybe in that space of feeling a little uncomfortable with ourselves, or maybe we're not liking ourselves so much, or we're remembering something that's not right. And then with that going on in our minds, that's when the people around us that have that same kind of vibration start popping in, right?
Oh,
And
man, yes.
yeah, yeah. And so I'll tell my clients, let's look at it and see, what's showing up and how can we change that? And so that we can change the ideas and the vibrations and it just kind of helps you to start getting those boundaries straight so that those people are not flocking around you, and you start getting the healthier versions of people flocking around you, because they're not going to try
Yes,
to get a piece of Kimmie. They're going to try to get next to Kimmie and say, hey, and get some of that vibration and that, that feeling from you, but they're not going to be trying to get Kimmie. It's a
I know.
totally different feel. So do you find that now that you've been doing some of this work, um, do you find that that happens more now, that people are a little bit healthier mentally when they start coming into your space?
Yes. Well, two plus, like I said, I might, well, I don't know. Last year in July was my last time at the hospital because my position went away because COVID went away.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up getting hired through the hospital still, but at a different location where I have my own office. But I talk to everybody, but I'm basically in my office facing a computer, which I'm bored to death. And it's not what I want to do. It's not me, but it's a job, you know. It's part of the patient experience, I guess, to make sure that the patient that's experiencing this trauma that they have to deal with or whatever, that they don't get billed incorrectly with their insurance. So we're a part of the experience, you know. Um, but anyway, but now, and I didn't tell you this, but Thursday I had a business meeting because I'm in a business called First Fitness, and so I went to my meeting, and so I wrote down the superhero that we did, and
Mm-hmm.
I taught the class. I taught the class on it,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
we incorporated it into our. It's like a bunch of women, and it's open to guys too. But it was us women that night, and we get together. We exchange gifts every 2 weeks, $10 and under, and we have a secret. Well, it's going to be a secret somebodyhood instead of sisterhood, and we can exchange gifts with whomever. For the first 30 days, nobody knows. The last day, you put a card in the gift and you tell them who they were gifted by. And so, and it's encouragement too for weight loss and for just getting your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
So, now it's like we're drawing in people and the Bible gets brought into it. And that's fine. I have no problem with it because, I'm a Christian, not perfect, but I am.
There's no
And
perfect people on the earth.
oh, I know. Uh, my toxic relationship there. He thinks the world revolves around him. I'm like, okay, whatever. But so I'm like, okay, you know. So it's attracting better people, and
Beautiful.
it's nice to have like-minded people. I mean, oh, the last person there, they're they're 5 years older than me. You think they'd want a better life, you know? And now I'm doing all these groups, and now I'm going to get my podcast going, and I'm getting ideas of what I want to do, and what I want to talk about for subjects. It's like, I need somebody to meet me on the plane going up, you know? I don't want to be crashing down.
Right.
And,
And you
you
don't
know,
want somebody that just hitches their wagon onto you and makes it harder for you to climb.
oh, yeah. And it's like, he's like, well, this was last Friday. We had a great day. He's like, can you take me to go do laundry? Because the laundromat by his place closed and I was going anyway. So I'm like, here, hop in. I'm nice like that. And we were talking and stuff. And I was telling him about my podcast experience so far and explaining to him what that's about. And he's like, you're talking gibberish. And I'm like, it's awesome stuff. I said, you really need to join this group. I said, trust me. I go, it will help you. I said, if you're so afraid of going to your meetings, I go, at least get involved with some people. You might run into a group that's for recovery. And you don't necessarily have to go to an in person meeting, but you can be surrounded by people that have had the same experience as you and that they can help you. You know, I said, but this group has helped me so much. I said, every day, every day, there's something I'm learning. And so I planted a seed.
Yeah.
But it's like, when you go there and all they do is want to smoke weed and they want to drink and have relations, it's boring. Like, you have, like, I try to talk about stuff, encouraging stuff like affirmations and stuff, and it's like goes in one ear and out the other. And unless I'm talking junky talk, ain't gonna happen. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I really don't. And you become boring to me. So when you become boring to me, I'll still love you, but I'm gonna love you from a distance. But I'm going to branch off. I'm going to keep going with my inner healing and growing. And you have fun staying stuck stagnant. I feel sorry for you, but it's a choice, and I'm still going to work on me, you know,
Yeah.
and that's how I
Beautiful.
have to be. And that's
Yeah,
how I have to be. So it
definitely.
was like, when he was sitting there, telling me he was torn between me and her, I'm like, look, I'm not an option. I'm either the it girl, I'm the only girl or woman, excuse me, or you can just go be with her and however many other people you want at the same time. I choose to live healthy and I keep growing and I'll still love you from a distance. I'll be your friend in passing. I'll pray for you every day, whatever. I go, but I'm not going to be an option. And I said, and besides that, I go, you're too messed up and I'm not an addict and I'm not going to get dragged down. Just not. So I left it at
So,
that.
what would feel the best for you about this relationship with him? What would feel good for it to happen from here?
Um, I'm just like washing my hands of it. Because the thing that threw me off though, Vickie, was that normally when he would talk to me any other time, he would his eyes, well, of course, because he was baked, so to speak, were half shut, you know, or he'd have them closed, or he'd never look me in the face. Well, when he was talking to me that Friday, last Friday, he was sober and he looked me right in the eyes, and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, he threw me off my game, and I think that was his goal. And in the back of my head, as he's telling me all this stuff, I mean, yes, I'm grateful he came clean. Why now? And in the back of my mind, in the words of my one friend, lies, lies, and more lies. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I've been so educational for the last 2 years on learning about narcissism and toxic relationships and stuff like that, that I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, he's just trying to schmooze his way. He's trying to throw me off my game. No, he doesn't want me. He just wants to. Well, when I called him out on his BS the first time, I didn't put his name to it, but I did put it on my Facebook page because I was stressed out and I was frustrated. And he read that and he contacted me and he was livid. So I'm thinking, oh, he's only hoovering himself back in after he blocked me. Um, and, just as he's blocking me, it took like 7 days for him to unblock himself to talk to me. And I'm like, stay gone. I'm doing better. You know,
So, did
like
you
keep
block him
blocked.
then?
No, I didn't. I ignore people. I move on. I move on with
Yeah.
my life. And you know what? If he happens to see me do a live or he sees one of my podcast episodes, maybe something might jar his head, because I want to eventually talk about addictions with people. I want to understand the why. I want to understand it. Like, when did you start? When was the first time you used? Why did you use? um how has your journey been? Because people need to have awareness to these things, like I grew up with family that did use. I had friends that used, um and I saw people die from the after effects. I didn't see them die per se, but I heard of their passing, or I saw them spiraling down to where they were close to death from using. And it was like, I thank God that I never went that route. I
Yeah.
really am, because, and don't think it didn't cross my mind growing up, with all the crap that I endured throughout my lifetime. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, because I know some stuff I did deserve, but not to the extent. I didn't deserve all of it. Some
Right.
of it, yes, but not all of it. And I will never be one to sit there and think I'm perfect, because I'll be the first one to tell you I'm a very imperfect. I'm perfectly imperfect. And when my kids were growing up, my kids had to prove they were innocent, because in my eyes, they were guilty until you prove your innocence. Because there's parents out there that think little Johnny and little Susie never do anything wrong. Sorry, sweetheart, your head's in the clouds. This is reality. Kids are going to be kids. So my kids, it was like apologize. Even if they didn't do it, I made them apologize. I made them learn a lesson because it's like life is not fair, but you know, apologize. Just be the bigger person, you know?
Yeah.
And
So what do
I
you
got
think you're bringing from because I think we've even talked about it, in the group, stand up and stand out, that if all these things happen to us to get us to where we are, but it's the important thing is to be able to look and see what's the lesson, what were we supposed to learn so that we could be the best version of ourselves. So with all of that stuff that you went through, and just stopping before you even look at this guy that you were dating, what do you think was the lesson that could help you now from all those things?
okay. So from I would say, and I just made this rationale recently, because of this person. Um, everyone's like, "Don't you want a healthy relationship?" Okay, well, I have to get healthy first. And so the realization is, I grew up in abuse. I grew up, seeing my mother date really nasty men, treat us kids like crap. And then in turn, it trickles down to your children, whether you know it or not. And so I've realized that because of growing up with narcissistic family, non real supportive, they were at times, but then they weren't. Um, and all that other crap. And then going from one relationship to the next, not dating in between, but it's like whenever I did date, it was always the same thing. It was a narcissistic, abusive person, but it's like you become numb to that. And that is what you seek out because God forbid a healthy guy comes along. You're going to freak out because you're not going to know how to deal with it. And it's like for many years, it was like, I want a healthy relationship. 14 and a half years with my son's dad was my longest. At first, I thought he was amazing. And then, after a while, it was like he cheated on me. He was verbally abusive. He was never physical, but it was always the mental and the emotional and verbal at times. And it was like, then I started to wake up and realize, I had enough, you know, especially when I would work late and I'd get accused of things and I never did. It was just because I had to work late. And I thought, people that accuse you are the ones that are doing it. So it was like now I'm recognizing it. So it was like my rationale moment after being in the one talk you were talking about. I can't remember which episode, during our affirmations, but it was like in order for me to really get a healthy relationship, I have to work on me and start recognizing my own red flags, my own toxic traits. And I did join Celebrate Recovery for it.
Mm.
And it's not just for addictions and whatnot. I mean, that is a big part of it, but it's also your hangups, your other issues. So it's like I want to recognize those characteristics like the codependency, all that other crap, so that I can get rid of it and deal with it. That way, when a good guy comes along, I'm not going to be sitting there all the time. Because even Grace and I, or Terry and I, are talking about it. And it's like, are we ever going to have a good relationship with anybody? Because we both are always looking for the red flags,
Hmm.
always because of the past. And it's like,
Right.
you know, it, but at some point you got to start feeling and stop being numb to it and used to it. And it's like, no, that wasn't normal.
Yeah.
So yes, and joining these groups are actually starting to help me to recognize these things to help me start keeping that healing journey going because it's
Yeah.
one layer like an onion and it
Yeah, and
takes
if I
time.
can
It was like,
offer one little piece right here,
mhm,
one of the things that you're going to find as you continue to do this inner work and changing your mindset and your beliefs about what you deserve and all those things, then it's going to start showing up in the fact that the people that come to you are not going to be the broken people that were there before. You won't be looking for red flags because it's not anything that you deal with. Not to say anybody's perfect, but it's that that maybe they're perfectly imperfect too. And it's just the
Hmm.
beautiful combination of the two of you, but they don't have all of those traits that you were attracting before. It's all going to happen. It's going to be, you're going to be so blown away with the person that you end up connecting with because it's going to be like I didn't even know this kind of thing existed.
I'm looking forward to that day. I really am. Like, I'm anticipating this, and it's like, oh my goodness. Like, I just, when my little buddy there, I'll just say buddy, showed back up, I'm like, God, it's like a black cloud. It won't go.
Yeah. Well, maybe
And
it
I'm
was a
like,
test
wow,
to see how dedicated you are to the change.
it is. And I am. And it's like, I keep sitting there and it's like, when we were talking, like after we got done talking, oh, and while I was there, she shows up and I was like, they were fighting. And I was like, I just want to slink out the window, but my butt's too big and I couldn't get out if I wanted to. So I kind of sat there and I'm like, oh God. They were outside and I'm like, oh, please, Jesus, there, please, no blood. No, no. I don't want to be, privy to this bad stuff. And I'm like, oh, please just go away, go away, go away. Let me slink out of here. You two can have each other and I'll just go home. But I
Yeah.
was so nervous, but yet I was like, yep, this is the kind of life he wants, and this isn't what you want, and this is not your thing. And
Yeah.
it's time to move on, girl. And, I would probably be emotional about it, but in all retrospect, and this is what I wanted to ask him is like, what do you bring to the table for us as a couple? What can you offer me um for me to want to be in a relationship with you? What do you offer me? Because I know what I bring to the table. I know what I want, and I'm 52. You're 5 years older than me, buddy, and yet you're still not sure. And he's like, well, I gotta stop sleeping around and I need someone to settle down with. And it's like, you do realize when it comes to being with me, since I've been in these groups, I'm not, and since I found my voice, I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to speak up and stand up for myself, and I will call you out on your bull. And are you game? And I said, there are times when I go through dark periods, like everybody does. You battle depression here and there. Sometimes, it hits me. Are you going to be able to withstand me being, down for a day or two, or maybe a week at that? Because I can recognize it now and I know how to work at it instead of let it take me over. And I said, are
Mm-hmm.
you going to be able to withstand that? Are you going to be able to help split the bills? Like we do 50-50. We work together. You know, um, I said, I can't save you. I can't help you. You got to help yourself when it comes to your issues. I said, but do know that I believe in celebrating each and everyone's strengths and what our weaknesses are. We work on them together. I said, and I want compassion. I want loyalty for one.
Mm-hmm.
Unconditional off the board. Everything I listed. I said, are you able to do that? I said, what do you bring to the table besides getting high every day, drinking every day? I said, you don't. I said, you don't want to learn new stuff. I said, you use excuses. I said, I'm sorry. I go, but life is short, you know. And a friend of his that was in recovery with him just died the other day. One, relapsed, started using. Two, had cancer, died in the hospital the other day. Hit him hard because since he's been in this group that he was in, there's a lot of people that have been dying because they've been falling off the bandwagon. It's like, what kind of recovery group home did you have? Or whatever that you guys are dropping dead left and right and going back into using. I'm like, obviously it wasn't that great because you guys are dropping like flies. And I said, I feel bad. So, like the other day, you know how I like to do my photos.
Mm-hmm.
I found this heart shaped cloud. I see these heart shaped clouds, I get excited. I'm always on the lookout for them. And it happened to look like an heart shaped with wings. Odd shape, but to me, it reminded me. So I sent him the picture and I said, "This is in honor of your friend." And I, circled it. And he was just like, "Thank you, you know." And I said, "I know this is difficult for you right now." I said, "But I'm thinking about you and I'm praying for you and his family and your friends, that you all were together. And I'm praying that, comfort will come your way and that you guys will start really living your life and seeing that recovery is very important and that never take anybody that loves you or your life for granted." I said, "Love you." I said, "If you do recovery for anybody, do it for you, nobody else." I said, "Because at the end of the day, you're stuck with this person that you see in the mirror every day. And you have to become your own best friend and you have to learn to love yourself." I said, "Trust me, since I've been in these groups, I'm learning to love myself more and I'm learning to know what I will deal with and what I will not."
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "And it would benefit you and everybody else, you know?" So I'm always talking about joining our group, joining Do the Thing. Everybody,
Yeah.
just find something and roll with it, but let it help you.
Yeah. But unfortunately, it's kind of like the old thing, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Yeah.
You can
Unless
want
they're thirsty.
that. Well, yes, sometimes they still won't. It just depends. Because if
Yes.
you think about it, people that have all these issues and everything, they may say that they want to be different, but they're so ingrained in what they know, and that is comfortable. And
Yes.
so
That familiar spirit.
sometimes we want it more for them than they could ever want it for themselves. And so the
Yep.
only person that really gets heartbroken in that situation is us. And
Yes.
so it's really important. And I love that you're doing that. You're getting more in tune with who you are and the things that you want in life. So I'd like to invite you, as you were describing what does he bring to the table thing, and you were talking about all these things that you wanted, to
Yes.
write this all on a piece of paper. Leave him out of the equation. He doesn't want to be better, or he
No,
already would. But write
you
down
know
all
he
those
doesn't.
amazing attributes that you're looking for in a relationship. And then as you write all that stuff down, turn it around and see, are you doing that for yourself?
Yes. That I have to do. And I know sometimes, like, even my girlfriend told me, my friend Fran, she's like, whenever you get involved with someone, she goes, always leave a little bit of you for you. She says, because you're always going to be giving. She says, but also learn your boundaries too. She goes, and that's when you'll find out who stays and who goes.
Yeah.
Because when you set your boundaries and when you start living for you, you know, it's like, well, yeah, like when we first got together, it was like the do's and don'ts of dating is so confusing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
don't be too clingy, be clingy. What am I supposed to be? I feel like I'm growing up with my family again, confused.
Well, see, the thing is that the best thing you can do is, like I said, make that list of all those attributes. Look at yourself and see, am I doing that for myself? And if you're not, then start doing all of that and
Yep.
just have a good time being you. And because you're amazing and you need to
Thank
see
you.
how amazing you are and actually feel that deep in your heart. And as you do that and you
Oh no.
really notice that all those amazing things you want
Uh-oh.
somebody else to do for you, that you're doing them for yourself. Oh,
Uh-oh.
are you there?
We froze.
Oh, okay. But as you're doing all of this stuff for yourself, you're going to notice that you don't need anybody then. And that's when somebody's going to show up that is healthy and well and able to be exactly the partner that you're looking for. Because you're not looking for
Yeah.
rescue. You're
No.
looking for someone who can be
Be the
complementary,
strong leader. Yep.
yeah, to
That
who you
complimenting.
are.
Yep.
And it's like you're well on your way. You're making all the strides. You're doing the things. You just got to keep going um and making sure that you don't allow old habits like him to pop back up, because even people that have been in relationships, like I've had relationships with people that it was a perfectly healthy relationship, it just didn't go where, it just didn't go there, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes if I got lonely or anything, I'd think back, well, maybe I should call that person. I think, what for? Why do I want to do that? Because it didn't work then. I need to just be me, and the new person will show. And
Yeah.
so, no matter how healthy you are, you still have those things. And I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means either, for
Oh
heaven's
yeah.
sakes. But the journey you're on is amazing. And so what I'm wondering, and I know you're wanting to help people to find the joy in life. You're wanting to help people laugh, if I'm remembering right.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so what are you doing now that enables you to do that for yourself and do that for others?
Um, like my lives, like the last few ones I've done, with me mowing my lawn. That was yesterday. I talk about that and I took a walk around my place. I'm like, this is what I was able to do. And I talk about like, I was like, don't mind me, I'm a sweat hog. Like the sweat hogs back in the 70s. Welcome back, Cotter.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I do is like when I'm doing my lawn, I'll pop in my earbuds. I've never done it. So I just straight mow and be done with it and pray to God no one's seen me. Now it's like I stand there, I take a break, I start dancing with my hands on the thing so it doesn't turn off. I dance while I'm mowing. I don't care who sees me anymore.
Yeah,
Laugh at me or whatever. If I sound good singing, great. If I don't, in God's eyes, it's make a joyful noise.
that's right. That's
Um,
right.
and like when I talked about my stress test, I it was kind of I had to laugh because the second time I went to up the ante on the speed, I almost flew off the thing, and I'm like, I'm gonna be there for a concussion, not for my heart. I survived it too, and I'll tell you why. Because I was walking. I did all that walking. Even in the wintertime, I did walking.
Yeah,
And I was out getting active because I was part of Louis' group. I was like shoveling my driveway. Took me time, but I did it. So it was like it helped me, and I prepared a year for this stress test. So I'm hoping I haven't gotten the results back, and I turned in my. Oh, that was another thing too. I took a picture of me with my sleep study apparatus. Honest to God, I mean, I had things sticking out my nose down here, and all they had to do was stick a snorkel in my face, and I'd look like I was deep sea diving. So I had to talk about that, and I stick a picture on my Facebook, and it's like you can laugh if you want because I feel like a walrus with this here, you know.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but laugh at yourself. I mean, I do. I mean, for Pete's sakes, like 2 years ago, I went to North Carolina. My friend paid my way. I mean, even gave me spending money and everything. And when I was down there, the last time I flew and was at an airport, I was 14. This was in '86. I'm dating myself here. Feels like yesterday, but it's been a while. It's been a hot minute or two. And so I was fearful and I was afraid. And it was like, no, you're going. You got your list of demands to God, like no pukers, no crashing the plane, whatever. I had my list. And it was like, I had a great time. Like I met people and was wild as the one woman on my way home the first time. She came into the hospital where I was working, and I was like, I remember you from the airplane ride. And we had a small conversation about that, but it was like, and this was before Do the Thing came into my life. So it
Nice.
was like, but my first time heading into Charlotte, I was not used to that. So, and it's a big airport in Charlotte, North Carolina. So I get in there. I only had 2 hours of sleep, mind you. My stress level was through the roof. I stayed awake the whole time on the plane because I'm like sitting there chewing. I'm looking at the floor so I didn't get airsick. And when I went to transfer from the Charlotte airport to get on a plane to catch to Asheville, I fell down the freaking escalator. My feet went up from underneath me and my arm was stuck. And then my arm's going down and my feet are dang. I look like a hot mess. I got up and I'm like, can anyone see me? I'm like, please, Jesus, no.
That's a YouTube video somewhere right now. You know that, right?
And I thank God that my bag broke the fall. I was just like,
That's too funny. So
It was, and
what's the
I had
name
to
of
laugh.
your podcast? What's the name of your podcast?
My podcast is going to be now because thanks to Madeline, the last girl I was on, doing a podcast with her.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going Kimmie's Chronicles, it's going to be the Chronicles of Kimmie.
Okay. Beautiful,
And the
beautiful.
reason I chose that is because, at first I just wanted to talk all about narcissistic, toxic, abusive relationships and the effects that it does have on the psyche, on the human body itself. It does trigger change in your DNA, your chemistry, your chemicals in your body, your brain. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, soldiers come home with PTSD, but when you suffer that, that's PTSD too,
Right.
and you don't realize that until you leave that situation. And then you start telling people how you were being dealt with. And it's like, wow, I put up with that, you know, um, why was I so stupid? Why was I so naive, or why was I so scared? And it's like, you know, back in 2020, when COVID started, back in January, I was sick. I got sick the last week. This was before they did testing, but they were talking about it. Well, I got real sick. Well, then February 1st rolled around and I was still living at my ex's house, just had my own bedroom. And he kicked me out of the house in the middle of winter. I was so sick. I was so weak. I was homeless for a few months so I could get into my place. And God shows you, because friends actually took me in, let me stay in their bunkhouse. Another friend of mine, these are church going folks, and they let me stay there. They didn't charge me anything. They made sure I was taken care of. But like out of that 5 months, I was sick for 5 months, and the stress level was ridiculous. I lost my voice for 3, but it was like God showed me, you know, you can live without a lot of stuff. So like when I ended up in my place that I'm at now, I just wanted to take and get a roll off and throw all my junk there. I didn't want to deal with it. I'm like, oh, we'll just throw it out. Art papers, I don't care. Clothes, whatever. I'm used to this less is more stuff. And it was like God opened my eyes because I didn't feel his presence near me or nothing for a long time. But I mean, a long time. Like my faith actually got rocked for a while because I had a real dark, dark place and I don't ever want to go back to it. But it was like God brought these people to me. Like I had no furniture, I had no dishware, nothing. People were giving me food. People were providing me. He was like sending these people to provide for me. And yeah, my furniture don't match, but guess what? I have a chair to sit in. I have a
Mm-hmm.
couch to lay on. I have food in my house. I have a roof over my head. God's provided me the funding. So yes, even though I was homeless, I still had a job
Yeah.
and I was still making car payments and I was still paying my bills. And actually this month, um, and not this week, but in 2 more weeks, I will pay my car off, and I've been paying on it since 2018. So
Nice.
it's been a
Nice.
blessing. So what car started to be $9,000 turned into, with all the fees and everything, over 20 grand. I paid on my car with the help of the good Lord providing me with a job and a roof over my head, which ain't the greatest. So now after like Mother's Day, I think I was telling everybody that I woke up, part of my ceiling caved in. I'm like, okay. And then my car is nickel diming me to death, basically. So it's like, oh, sure, I'm going to finish paying off my car just in time to turn around and have to get a loan, hopefully, and get a different car. So it's like, I thought about it. And yes, I was a little upset part of that day, but my son came over and I'm like, I'm not going to let this junk get to me. It's part of life. You roll with it. So I didn't let it, I just got rid of it, got it out of my mind. And I'm like, it's not going to ruin my day. And I redeemed it with my son. And we had the best day. But it was like,
Nice.
this is part of life. So then I got to thinking about it. And it's like, I'm starting a podcast soon. I'm looking for a better job. In fact, I had just come from a different job interview before I came on here. I'm hoping I get this job, but it's in the good Lord's hands, and I'll be thinking good thoughts about it. So it's
Yeah.
like
Well, I love the name of your podcast. I love the name. And I will
Yeah.
say that, mine, the name of mine has not changed since I started it. However, the things that I'm doing in it have, because in the beginning, I was just going to be talking me, and
Hmm.
I did that a little bit, and then I started seeing people that I wanted to know what their stories were, and I started pulling them in. And so it changed a lot. So no matter what you decide your podcast is about right now, just be open, because as you start doing all of this stuff, God's going to be talking to you then too and saying, this is perfect, or maybe you need to think about this. Let's bring in this. Let's do this. And so, like I said, the name may stay exactly the same, but
Hmm.
the insides can change just like you, right? Your
Actually,
outside, your name and all that stuff is going to stay the same, but you are changing inside.
that, and I just, and I was telling on my live. In fact, the other day when I was at work, like I've been like nonstop. It's like I do my job, but yet I think about this podcast and what I want to do with it. And so I happen to be watching, I multitask and I get bored, so I take a brain break. And I watched this one video or this reel on my Facebook. And this young lady went up to this elderly gentleman in a Cracker Barrel, no less. And she started talking to him and she noticed he was sitting there by himself. And I'm like, this just so resonates with me because I just sat there and I had tears running down my eyes. But this was a veteran. And they started talking about Vietnam.
I
And I have
saw
an
that
uncle
one
that was in
too.
Vietnam and how they got disgraced when they came.
Yeah, you're frozen on my side. I don't know if I'm frozen on yours. Are you there, Kimmie?
Hello, you there?
Yeah,
Okay.
there you
Okay,
are. There
okay.
you are.
Yeah, so I watched this video and I'm like, that's it. So like I'm trying to think of things that I want to talk about. So yes, I want to meet up with people and I want to gather information about dating, the do's and don'ts. And the same with marriage, for those in the married 10 plus years, still to the same person, I want to get information from. Um, you know, talk to people who've been through the hard relationship. How did they survive? What's different? I got questions. But then when I watched this video on this veteran, I was like, I've always had a thing for veterans. Like if I had a bunch of money, I would love to do something for, especially the homeless veterans, um, or those that come home with PTSD or whatever, and to help them. But it's like I realize why I'm going to do this. It's not so much to get popularity because I don't need it, but it's to make awareness to these situations or to these issues, like the drug addictions to or addictions or to veterans and what they've gone through since they've come home from war or what they experienced while they were overseas. Like I want their story to be heard because I
Hmm.
want them to know that yes, they're valuable, they're important, people will love them. Some may, some won't, but their story is important and maybe it could help somebody else.
True. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's what I'm wanting to do.
Well, we're getting right at time. We're actually a little over time, but you've been fascinating. So, are you wanting people to email you or check you out on your social media to find out more about your podcast? Do you know when it's going to be starting? Or
I'd like to get it going in July. I'd like
okay,
to. Praying to God that it goes that way. Um, and they can either look me up on Facebook under Kimmie, Kimmie Nowak, Nowak, or they can email me all lowercase, and it's MISSKIMN, and then the number 0 and the number 8 at gmail.com. But, you know, you can look me up there. Um, that's usually the good one. I mean, I have another one, another active Facebook, but I haven't been on that.
yeah,
It
don't give
was
them
my
that one.
second. Yeah, just give me the Kimmie because that's
Yeah.
the one everybody knows me by. So, they can find me on there
All right,
and I
beautiful.
will gladly talk to people.
All right, beautiful. So maybe they can schedule to be on your podcast and share with you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Kimmie, for being here. And this has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you. And I try to tell you that as often as I see you on the lives and everything, because you're one of my founding members, and it has been amazing to see some of your growth. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate you.
I value being on there all the time. And when I'm not busy with a meeting or I have a heavy claim that I'm trying to work on, I always try to be on there like as diligent as I can because it does help.
Yeah.
And it does change the mood of my office and the mood of me. And it's like, you know, I come out, if I have to go pick up a claim off the printer, I'm like all smiles and, you know, half the time
Beautiful.
nobody realizes I'm there. Like I dodge it, I go in and out, you know.
Yeah.
If I see someone like, hey, how's it going? And then I go back into my office, do my job.
No, well, thank you so much for sharing that. And so I want to leave everybody with one of my favorite quotes. And you'll appreciate this one too. The best way to predict the future is create it. So, what are you creating? And with that, I will tell everyone thank you so much for being here, and I will see you soon. Mwah.